Big shout out to Nina for requesting this wonderful story. Once upon a time, in an age where the world was a little bit quieter and magic still liked to hide in the corners of dusty rooms, there lived an honest shoemaker. He wasn't a greedy man, nor was he lazy. He worked from sunrise to sunset, his hammer going tap, 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 and his needle pulling thread through tough leather. But hard times had fallen upon the town. People weren't buying new shoes. They were patching their old ones until there was more patch than shoe. Eventually, the shoemaker found himself in a dire spot. He walked into his workshop one cold winter evening and looked at his workbench. "Well, Mary," he said to his wife, his voice heavy with a bit of sadness, "this is it. I have exactly enough leather left to make one last pair of shoes. After this, we have nothing left to sell, and no money to buy more." His wife, a kind woman with a steady heart, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't lose hope, Samuel. Cut the leather tonight, and you can sew them in the morning when your eyes are fresh. Who knows, tomorrow might bring a miracle." Samuel nodded. He carefully measured the leather. He cut the shapes for the soles, the heels, and the uppers with precise, practiced movements. He laid them out neatly on his wooden bench, blew out the candle, and went to bed with a heavy sigh. The next morning, after a simple breakfast of crusty bread, Samuel went into his workshop. He picked up his thread, ready to start the long day of sewing. But when he looked at his bench, he rubbed his eyes in disbelief. The pieces of leather were gone. In their place stood a pair of shoes. They weren't just any shoes. They were magnificent. The stitching was so fine it was almost invisible. The leather shone as if it had been polished by the sun itself. "Mary, come quickly, me knee," he shouted. His wife ran in, wiping her hands on her apron. "What is it? Is there a fire?" "Look," Samuel pointed at the bench. Mary picked them up, turning them over in her hands. "Samuel, these are beautiful. I've never seen work this perfect. When did you finish them?" "You were asleep all night." "I didn't finish them," Samuel whispered. "I haven't even touched my needle." Just then, the bell above the shop door rang. Ting-a-ling. A wealthy merchant walked in. He caught sight of the shoes immediately. "Good heavens!" the merchant exclaimed. "Those are the most exquisite boots I have ever laid eyes on. I must have them." He tried them on and they fit perfectly, as if they had been molded to his feet by magic. He was so pleased that he paid double the usual price. With the extra money, Samuel was able to buy enough leather for 2 pairs of shoes. That evening, he did exactly what he had done before. He cut the leather into shapes, laid them on the bench, and went to bed. "If the miracle happens again," he told Mary, "we might actually be able to pay the rent." Sure enough, the next morning, 2 pairs of perfect shoes sat on the bench. They were even more stylish than the first. Before noon, 2 customers came in and paid handsomely for them. Now Samuel had enough money to buy leather for 4 pairs. This went on for weeks. Every night, Samuel cut the leather. Every morning, he found finished shoes. The shop became famous. People traveled from the next town over just to see the shoemaker who never missed a stitch. Samuel and Mary were no longer poor. They were quite comfortable. But Samuel was a curious man. One evening near Christmas, as the snow drifted against the window pane, Samuel turned to Mary. "Doesn't it bother you? We're getting rich off the work of someone we've never even thanked. I want to know who is doing this." Mary nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing. Let's not go to bed tonight. Let's hide behind the curtains in the corner and see what happens at midnight." They lit a small candle and hid in the shadows of the workshop. The clock on the mantel ticked slowly. Tick, tick, tick. The wind howled outside. Then, as the clock struck 12, the door didn't open, but suddenly 2 tiny figures appeared on the workbench. They were 2 little elves, no taller than a loaf of bread. Their little skin was blue from the cold, and they were shivering, for their clothes were just ragged scraps, thin as cobwebs, patched and dirty, looking like those of tiny beggars. They jumped onto the bench, picked up the leather Samuel had cut, and began to work. Their tiny hands moved like lightning. Stitch, stitch, stitch. Hammer, hammer, hammer. They didn't stop to rest. They sang a tiny wordless song as they worked. In what seemed like only a few minutes, the leather was transformed into 4 pairs of beautiful shoes. As soon as the last knot was tied, the elves jumped off the table and vanished into thin air. Samuel and Mary stepped out from behind the coats, mouths agape. "The poor little things," Mary whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "They have done so much for us, and their little clothes are nothing but rags, thin and dirty. They must be freezing in this winter air." "I feel like a bit of a heel," Samuel said, using a shoemaker's pun without even meaning to. "We've been selling their work and keeping the gold. We must do something for them." "I know," Mary said. "I will sew them each a tiny shirt, a warm coat, a waistcoat, and a pair of trousers. And you must make them the smallest shoes ever made." For the next few days, they didn't work on shoes for customers. They worked on the gifts. Mary used the finest linen for the shirts and the softest wool for the coats. She even made tiny brass buttons. Samuel used his most supple scraps of leather to make boots that were the size of a thumb, lined with warm fur. On Christmas Eve, instead of laying out leather, they laid out the 2 sets of tiny clothes and shoes on the workbench. Then they hid again. Midnight arrived. The elves appeared with a poof on the table, expecting to find leather to work on. When they saw the new fine clothes instead, they stopped and looked at each other. "Is this for us?" one elf squeaked in a voice like a silver bell. They picked up the clothes, realized they were exactly their size, and began to dress with great excitement. They pulled on the trousers, buttoned the coats, and laced up the tiny fur-lined boots. They danced around the workbench, admiring their new outfits. They began to sing, "Happy little elves are we, dressed as fine can be. No more cobbling shoes all night, we'll dance away in the morning light." They hopped down from the bench, skipped across the floor, and danced right out the front door and into the snowy night. The elves never returned to the workshop. Some say they moved on to help another honest soul in need. Others say they were finally retired and went to live in the forest. But it didn't matter. Samuel and Mary remained prosperous for the rest of their lives. Samuel had learned so much by watching the elves that his own work became just as good as theirs. He continued to work with a joyful heart, always remembering to be grateful for the help he received when he needed it most. And every Christmas Eve, they would leave a small bowl of cream and a bit of cake on the workbench, just in case their tiny friends ever decided to stop by for a visit.